Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to the channel Bookables. Today I'm here to do a video that I've done a few times before. I like seasonal videos. Do I do the same videos every single year but add on a few books? Yes, but honestly I love those niche type of videos. I love seasonal videos and I just love recommendation videos. So today's video is going to be a delicious reads, books about food that I've done a couple times before, and I honestly love those type of books. Those are a big draw for me. Whenever I hear a book is set like in a bakery or is about a chef or somebody about to open up their own like cupcake place, like I'm immediately drawn into that. I've read a lot of them honestly. Now some of them are really great, which is the ones I'm going to talk about. Now some of them are not the best. I won't talk about those, but like I said, I've done this a couple times. As always, every year I add on a little bit more every single year. So let's get into it. If you want books that kind of have food at the heart of it, these are for you. First off, I'm going to start off with the most recently released one that I've read, and that is The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. This one is a witchy book and kind of a food book all in one. Basically, we follow a character, forgive me, I forgot her name as I read it on ebook. She is a witch. She's part of a witchy family. Her and her grandmother open a tea and bakery shop. The chapter ends with a recipe that they talk about throughout the book. Sometimes it's like fried chicken or a lavender tea, and they say how they really use elements in their food and baking to like witchiness. They'll use like lavender for luck and like salt for strength and cinnamon and things like that. And this has a lot of recipes in it. I wanted to cook one, but time got away from me. But it's a great one in case you're wanting to try out a book that has recipes in it where you can kind of feel more connected to it. This is a great one. Again, it's about like this witch that fears that she's going to have another heartbreak and lose her magic, and it's very family based. It is kind of sad, but it's a great food read. Next up, we have an historical book, and that is The Kitchen Front by Jennifer Ryan. What immediately drew me to this book was the cover and like the spine, how it's got the gingham right here, and the cover is just so retro. So this book takes place in Britain and years into World War II, so rations are getting tough, and that's what this whole book is kind of about. We follow 3 different women that are having to deal with rations because back then you could only get a certain amount of things. A lot of people would grow what they call victory gardens, where they would have to just grow things to supply for their family. And so we follow each of these different women, and basically there's this show that comes on BBC radio where it's like how to do the most with your rations, and a contest comes up, and basically the contest is you have to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like 3 different meals with the rations that everyone gets for said week, and whoever makes the best will win this job and things like that. Each of these 3 women need it. It's amazing, and it's all about their kind of journey, their sisterhood, also their struggles, because it's World War II. Like rations is tough. Some of their husbands are away at war. Some of them don't have husbands. It's just really tough. They're all trying to feed their families, and it's a beautiful book that I never hear anybody talk about, so it's an underrated one as well, but food is the main center of this book, I will say. Next up, we have a YA book, and that is A Cubans Girl's Guide to Tea and Tamar by Laura Taylor Namey. I love this book when I read it a few years ago. I don't read a ton of YA anymore, but this one stuck with me because I just thought it was such a beautiful read. This book follows a character named Lila, and she lives in Miami. Her family owns a Cuban restaurant, and basically the summer starts not so good for her. She loses her abuela, and then her boyfriend breaks up with her, and so she is quite honestly depressed. And her parents see that and they decide, you know what, why don't you go live with your aunt for the summer? She lives in Britain in like this inn, and so she goes there trying to get a fresh start in her life, and you know, begins cooking there in this little inn and brings some Cuban Miami flavor to Britain. And there she meets a whole slew of friends. I forget the guy's name, Ryan, and his dad owns a tea shop, and she doesn't like tea, which I understand, but he's like, there's a tea for everybody. So he has a mission for her to like find the tea that she likes, and it's just about their friendship blossoming into something more. But it's about Lila, you know, dealing with her grief of losing her abuela and her boyfriend, while also learning a different part of herself, while also cooking and things like that, because she loves to cook. Her family owns a Cuban restaurant, and she wants to bring that flavor to Britain. And it's just a really beautiful YA story that does have the center of food, and I thoroughly loved it. Next up, we have one I always recommend, and it's one of my favorites. Why I still don't own a physical copy of this book is beyond me, and that is Kiss My Cupcake by Helena Hunting. Perhaps my favorite of like any cupcake type type of books I've read. I've read a lot. This book follows Blair and Ronan, and Blair is opening up her own cupcake shop. It's like a cupcake and booze shop. Like, yes. And then she learns that another place is opening next door to her. It's like a man's like bar where it's got like axe throwing and flannel wearing and macho and all that kind of stuff. And Ronan is the owner there, and they clash immediately. They have fights a lot. They always try to take away business from each other, and then they learn maybe, you know, there's some chemistry behind all that fighting. Who would have thought? And it's just adorable. Each chapter begins with a new cupcake. It tells you the flavor and kind of things like that, which I love. And I love the idea of a cupcake and booze shop. Like, just it sounds amazing. And it was just a cute one. If you want a cute, steamy romance with cupcakes in it, look no further. Maybe perhaps cupcakes aren't your thing, but just baking in general. I have The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell. I read this one earlier this year. While it wasn't my favorite, I do think it's great for fans of the Great British Bake Off. If you have not watched that show, you are thoroughly missing out, my friend. It is a show of just pure goodness. Like, I am not the biggest fan of competition shows. I'm not very competitive as a person. No. I feel like I used to watch a lot of cooking competitive shows, but they just, man, they would just bury a knife in you if they could. Like, they would take you to, it was just intense, okay? But the Great British Baking Show is like a different reality. They're not calm, they're baking, but they're always trying to help each other out. If the time's gonna run out soon, if one of them is done with their bakes, the other one will help them. It's just nice and warm and cozy. And this book is kind of a cozy mystery where we have a show. Well, it's pretty much a Great British Bake Off. They all go to this castle, and basically in the book, somebody ends up dead, and you don't know who died, or you don't know who died or who did it. And it kind of goes back in time to show the baking week, if you will, because they spend 1 week there. They do one-day breads and things like that. So if you're a big fan of the Great British Baking Show and are looking for somewhat of a book kind of like that, this one is similar. It's not 100% the same vibes. I didn't love it, but the baking aspect and like kind of the homage, I guess you could say, to the Great British Baking Show was there. So I would recommend it in like the food sense of regard. We're going to take a little different of a path and go to coffee. And of course for that I have Legend of the Lattes by Travis Baltrey, a book I read earlier this year and fell in love with. This is all about our main character Viv right here, who is an orc, and she is tired of slaying people and demons and all that kind of stuff. And she wants to hang up her axe, and my girl wants to open up a coffee shop, and good for her. And this is a fantastical world where coffee is still relatively new. No one knows the wonders and magic of it. I say that as a person that doesn't even drink coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I know. But, I mean, I love the smell of it and I respect it. But anyway, she opens up her own shop. She hires another girl to help her. She hires like this little rat that helps bake things. So she's like, maybe some baked goods would be good with coffee, you know? It's just like obvious to us, but not obvious to them. And so he makes these cinnamon rolls and then biscotti, and then they bring in live music. And it's all about, literally this book, the whole plot is just opening up a coffee shop. It doesn't have much more than that, but it is so heartwarming, so adorable, and you will want to visit this coffee shop and never leave. Trust you me, coffee, if you like coffee, coffee shops, warm, cozy books, like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but this book. Then we have Simmer Down by Sarah Smith, a book I read a couple years ago, so forgive me, I do not know the character's name, but it is all about this woman that is a chef, and she's doing pretty good for herself, and her parents decide to go to Maui to open up their own food truck, a dream that they always had, and then her dad kind of unexpectedly dies, and she decides to go down to Maui to help her mom out because she doesn't want her mom to abandon her dream, you know, even though her dad has passed on. And so she has been in Maui for a while, and she's helping her mom at this Cuban food truck, and they're doing really good. And then another food truck comes to kind of like take them off, and that is like a British food truck guy, and he's very brash and, you know, not so charming, and they fight a lot. You can obviously tell where the plot's gonna go. And basically there's this big competition where you have different food trucks, and if you just love food trucks, like I said, I don't like competitive cooking shows, but I will say I am a big fan of the Great Food Truck Race. Like, I don't know why, I really enjoy that show. I don't watch it really often, but when I do, I really like it. So any sort of food truck thing, I'm always like, intriguing. And it's different dynamic than a restaurant for sure. I've always thought I could work in one because I worked at a fast food restaurant for years, like years. So I feel like I know the nittiness, the grittiness and stuff, and I could probably run the mess out of a food truck. I don't really want to though, but I could. But either way, this was a cute romance one about food trucks and I would highly recommend it. It's When in Rome by Sarah Adams. This is an adorable, clean romance book. Kind of reminds me of Gilmore Girls in a way where we have a character named Amelia who is a famous musician. She's like a superstar, kind of like Taylor Swift, but I kind of almost pictured her like Lorelai Gilmore. Like she's very quirky and fun and outgoing, and she's quite honestly burnt out, and she decides she's gonna rewatch one of her favorite movies, On Holiday, starring Aubrey Hepburn, and she decides, you know what, I'm gonna go to Rome, but she's like, I can't really go to Rome. So she goes to Rome, Kentucky, and then her car breaks down in front of this guy's house and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get killed. Feel the same. And it turns out to be this guy named Noah who owns the house, and he kind of is a very Luke Danes character from Gilmore Girls, very brash and just kind of, I don't like anybody, I just do my thing and I live in a small town. You know, that kind of guy, but he secretly, you know, he's got like the heart of gold and you're just like, give me that heart, you know? And so they kind of live with each other because he offers her a room, and then he also owns a pie shop. There's where the food comes in, and he teaches her how to do pies, and it's adorable and just, oh, so super cute. Like if you want a small town book about food and things like that, this one has you covered. And the last book I have for you is and then I haven't even read yet, but I will eventually. It's part of a series where I have read the first book, and that is Mixed Signals by B.K. Morrison. I thought this was the second book. I'm pretty sure it's the third. Either way, it's got a picture of a cake on it, so you know it's gonna be delicious. But this is about a character named Layla, and she owns the bakery at where Love Light Farms, which is the first book, is kind of based. They have a bakery, and she just bakes all these amazing things. Even in Love Light Farm, they would talk about her baking and things like that. In this book, she is deciding to maybe have like a fake relationship with this guy, and things kind of go from there. And I've heard it's really adorable, and I will recommend it and feel good about it because Love Light Farms was such a warm, cozy book that you can just feel the warmness from it. And so I can imagine this one is the same, only with Love Light Farms, you felt the warmness from the whole farm altogether. This one, I know you're going to feel it particularly from Layla's bakery because it's just going to be warm and comforting and just amazing. It's, you know, I will read this one day. So there you have a whole bunch of books that have food at the core of them. If you want some amazing, delicious, heartwarming reads, these books right here have you covered. I would love to know some of your favorite books that have food at the front of them. I would just love to know. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.